So here I am where we left it. It was in AWS code commit. And in services now, I will go ahead and type code pipeline and open this in a new tab. So now we have code pipeline in the second tab. So code pipeline, as you can see, is to visualize and automate the different stages of your software release and watch your code go. So you automate, so it's all around continuous delivery, automation of build, test, and deployments, tracking to see how things are going visually, and then learning just to see how to troubleshoot your pipelines. So let's get started. And the first thing we have to do is to create a pipeline name. So we'll create my first pipeline, but you can name it however you want. Click on next. And then you need to choose a source provider. So this is where your source code is stored. And as you can guess, close your eyes, you can guess what the source providers are going to be. So there's Amazon S3, AWS Code Commit, and GitHub. Turns out that we've already opened a code commit repository, so we'll just use code commit. And it turns out that the repository name we have to specify is man.node.js app that we created from before, and the branch name is master, which is the first branch and only branch we have in our repository. Now we see that there is a little information here. It says we will use Amazon CloudWatch events to detect changes. So basically, Cloud Pipeline will create a CloudWatch event rule, and basically on any change happening in code commit, the event rule will trigger our code pipeline. So this is something happening for you. You don't need to do anything about it. And so here are those change detection options. So you basically have two ways. Either you use the CloudWatch events, and that's the recommended way. This basically ensures that your code pipeline will start just as those changes are pushed. Or you can use a more less recommended method, which is to use code pipeline to check periodically for changes. But that means that code pipeline will just ping your code repository all the time, and that may be extremely inefficient. So the recommended way is the first one. And just so you know, it creates a CloudWatch event rule, and here is the name of the rule. So code pipeline my node master 17317 rule. So overall, nothing to worry about, but it's just for you to understand how the source provider gets hooked to your code pipeline. Click on next. And now we have specified a build provider. Well, it turns out that we don't have a build yet, so we'll just choose no build, and we'll see code build in the next lectures anyway. So we'll go ahead and click on next step. And then deployment provider. Here we can choose how deployment we do. So we won't do no deployment. We actually want to deploy. It turns out that we've used Elastic Beanstalk in the past, so that's what we choose. But we can see that you have Amazon ECS, CloudFormation, Code Deploy, or Beanstalk. And so you have lots of different options with Code Pipeline actually. I will choose Beanstalk, and now we have to deploy to an existing application. Turns out that we have my first web app Beanstalk here, and I'm sorry, my naming conventions are horrible, but at least they work. And then the environment name, well, so far we don't want to deploy to prod, we want to deploy to the first environment we've created. So we'll just deploy to this one, and everything looks good. Click on next step, and now we have to specify an IAM role for code pipeline, so that the code pipeline can execute all the permissions and all the API actions it needs to get the data all the way from the source into the deployment of Elastic Beanstalk. So for this, we have to specify a role name. So we'll create that role and click on create role. And so basically this is a quick ready to go policy. So we'll create a new IAM role, okay? And this is AWS Code Pipeline Service. And if you look at the policy document, it can do a lot of things. It can have an allow on S3 to get some data. So this is around getting, the artifacts. It can do S3 put objects. And the idea is that basically it's going to be able to put the artifacts into both Code Pipeline and Elastic Beanstalk. And that makes sense. And then there's going to be some code commit actions, for example, to get the branch, get the commit. So this is to get the code, etc. That makes a lot of sense. And then there's going to be actions on code deploy that we haven't seen yet. And then a bunch of actions on EC2, Elastic Beanstalk, load balancing, etc., to basically orchestrate everything. So this is quite a powerful IAM policy. If you're crazy about security, you could go ahead and edit it. But so far, we'll just use the policy that was given by us, and that makes a lot of sense to use this. So we'll click on allow. And now we have the role name ready, AWS Code Pipeline Service. Click on next step, and we can review the pipeline. So the source provider, again, is code commits. We will not provide a build. We will deploy to Elastic Beanstalk, and we'll deploy to this environment env. So that looks good. And let's go ahead and create the pipeline. Oh, by the way, I told you about artifacts. So artifacts are going to be stored in a pipeline S3 bucket, and this is basically the name of my S3 bucket. So go ahead and create the pipeline. And the pipeline has been created. So now we have a pipeline and we have different ways of using it. And so as we can see right here, we can see visually how the pipeline works. So we have the code, the source, and the source is from AWS code commit. And it turns out that there is a sync already happening in progress right now. So when we first create the pipeline, it's going to look at the source and see what happened in it and then pull it basically. And then we should see this code being deployed to Elastic Beanstalk. So if we're quick enough, let's go to Elastic Beanstalk. Right here, we're going to Elastic Beanstalk and go to my app env. So this is where we're going to deploy. And if we look at the URL right now, we can see that the background is green, okay? Because this is the sample app that we've deployed. But in our AWS code commit, if we look at the index.html and scroll down a little bit, we can see that the background color is going to be blue. So what we expect to happen is that once the code pipeline finishes, so once the source gets finished and then the staging happens, we should find that this URL right here should return a blue background. So let's wait a little bit until it happens. So now, yeah, AWS code commit just succeeded. So it looks good. It's a green tick. So it's visually pleasing. We know that things have worked, obviously. And you get some information around the output artifacts, the branch, etc. And then now we're getting into Elastic Beanstalk and it's in progress. There is a deployment of the latest version of the code. So let's just wait a little bit. Now we can see that the staging also has worked. So if we go back to this web page and refresh it, now it's blue. So my new app has been deployed into Elastic Beanstalk, and we can even look into Elastic Beanstalk and refresh this page. And it turns out that yes, a few minutes ago, there was a new application version that was deployed to our version. And so it turns out that, Elastic Beanstalk is now running the version called Code Pipeline. And here is the big name of the Code Pipeline, which is really, really awesome. So basically Code Pipeline just deployed Elastic Beanstalk from us all the way from the source code commit repository. And so we can start seeing really the ability, to make things really, really, really good and awesome. So we can play a little bit further with this. Let's just go back to Beanstalk, look at application versions. And now we can see that there is a new version label right here that was created for us by Elastic Beanstalk, and it looks great. The other thing we can do to make things really, really fun is start adding more changes. So we can go to edit, and now we can see that visually we are able to just change things. So we could add a stage right here. We can add a stage right here. So we're really free to do whatever we want. So let's add a stage, and this one I'll call deploy to prod, and the action of it is going to be a deploy, and we're type an action name, so we'll say deploy to prod, and the deployment provider is going to be Beanstalk, still the same thing. The application name is the same as before, but now the environment name is going to be the prod environment. Now we add actions. Oh, and we need an input artifacts, obviously, so we'll just click on my app, which is the artifacts that are created from here. So that makes sense. Click on add action. And finally, just before that, I'd like to just manually approve things. So I'll click on the stage and I'll call manual approval. And here's an action. And this time I'll just say approval. And I will say manual approval. And the approval type is going to be manual. Now we can basically create a SNS to say to people, hey, you should send an email and say, hey, you should click on this link to approve the pipeline. So far, I won't do it. I'll just click on action and I'll just look at my manually and visually. But basically, you're able to edit this thing and trigger an SNS topic notification if you wanted the manual approval to go through emails. So, okay, this looks good. And after deploy to prod, everything should be working. So let's just save the pipeline. And then we click on save. And it turns out that there is an error. So manual approval basically must satisfy a non-space naming convention. Same as deploy to prod probably. So I'll just click here and say deploy to prod. And you save the pipeline changes, save and continue. And this time the pipeline has been updated. So now if we look at our pipeline, we have source staging, a manual approval that needs to happen right here, and a deploy to production stage. So this is quite awesome. And again, if we go back to the edit, we're free to see that we can add a lot of stuff in the stages and we can many actions and we can make them in parallel and sequential. The actions can be source, build, test, deploy, invoke. So we're really free to do whatever we want, and we're able to just customize this pipeline as we want. So this looks good. In the next lecture, I'm just going to go ahead and continue this. I just wanted to divide this lecture in two because it's pretty big, but let's see how we can make our code pipeline work even better.